I pulled into my driveway after a 14-hour coding marathon, at the office completely exhausted and ready to collapse on my couch. Instead, I found my house blazing with lights, colorful balloons tied to my front porch railing, and the sound of children laughing echoing through my windows. 20 strangers were celebrating in my living room, while my brother Danny stood in my kitchen, cutting a massive birthday cake. Emma, his 6-year-old daughter, wore a princess crown and squealed with delight as presents were unwrapped on my expensive leather furniture. Danny looked at me like I was the intruder. "What the hell is going on here?" I shouted over the noise, but Danny just smiled that familiar cocky grin that always made my blood boil. "Relax, Frank. You said Emma could have her party here months ago. Remember when we talked about it at Mom's house?" Danny wiped chocolate frosting off his hands with one of my good kitchen towels, leaving brown stains across the white fabric. "I never agreed to anything like this. How did you even get inside?" My voice cracked with exhaustion and disbelief as I surveyed the chaos surrounding me. Juice boxes leaked purple liquid onto my hardwood floors, while sticky fingerprints covered every surface within a child's reach. The party guests stared at me with disapproving expressions, clearly viewing me as the villain disrupting a sweet family celebration. One mother whispered something to her husband while shaking her head, and I caught the words "selfish" and "his own niece." Their judgment felt like hot needles pricking my skin. "Uncle Frank, look at my new dollhouse." Emma bounced toward me with innocent excitement, completely unaware of the tension crackling through the room. Her genuine happiness made my anger feel petty and cruel, exactly what Danny was counting on. "Emma, sweetheart, Uncle Frank is just tired from work. Why don't you show the other kids your new toys?" Danny guided his daughter away from me while addressing the crowd. "Sorry, everyone, Frank works really late and gets grumpy when he's hungry." The way he painted me as the unreasonable one made my chest burn with frustration. These people didn't know that Danny had been unemployed for 8 months, couldn't pay his rent, and had a habit of taking what he wanted without asking permission. They saw a devoted father throwing his daughter a magical birthday party, and a bitter uncle trying to ruin it. "I need everyone to leave. Now." I tried to keep my voice calm and reasonable, but exhaustion made it sound harsh and unwelcoming. "The party isn't over yet," Danny protested, crossing his arms in defiance. "Emma hasn't blown out her candles and her friends just got here. You're being ridiculous about family time." While arguing with Danny, I noticed something that made my stomach drop to my feet. The door to my home office stood slightly ajar, and I always kept it locked. I pushed through the crowd of judgmental parents and children, ignoring their mumbled complaints about my rudeness. My office looked like a tornado had torn through it. File cabinet drawers hung open, revealing empty folders where my important documents should have been. Bank statements, insurance papers, my birth certificate, and social security card were nowhere to be found. Someone had rifled through every drawer, every box, every personal file I owned. Danny. I spun around to find him standing in the doorway, his face pale, but his expression still defiant. "What did you do in here?" "I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you left it messy this morning." His voice wavered just enough to confirm my worst suspicions. "The door was locked. The spare key was hidden. How did you get into my house?" I stepped closer, watching his eyes dart away from mine like they always did when he was lying. "I called a locksmith. Told him I locked myself out of my own house. Simple mistake, right?" Danny's explanation sounded rehearsed, like he'd practiced it multiple times before today. Emma appeared beside her father, tugging on his sleeve. "Daddy, remember when you were looking for those papers while we put up decorations? You said Uncle Frank wanted you to organize his office as a surprise." The innocent comment hit Danny like a physical blow. His face flushed red as he quickly knelt down to Emma's level. "Sweetheart, why don't you go open more presents with your friends? Daddy needs to talk to Uncle Frank about grown-up stuff." My laptop screen glowed on my desk, showing recent activity in my browser history. Someone had accessed my online banking, my credit monitoring service, and my email account. The violation felt deeper than simple theft. This was personal betrayal, wrapped in the disguise of a children's birthday celebration. "Get out of my house right now, or I'm calling the police," I said quietly, my voice deadly serious. Danny straightened up his fake smile, disappearing completely. "You'd really call the cops on your own brother? Over what, a little family party? Mom would be ashamed of you for treating family like this?" The manipulation was classic Danny, but it still stung because part of me wondered if he was right. Was I overreacting to what might have been a genuine misunderstanding? Then I looked at my violated office again and felt my resolve harden like concrete. "You broke into my home, stole my personal documents, and violated my privacy. That's not family bonding. That's criminal behavior." I pulled out my phone and started dialing 911. "Fine, be that way." Danny snapped his mask of reasonableness, finally slipping. "But don't expect Emma to understand why her uncle destroyed her birthday party. Don't expect me to forget this either." The threat in his voice chilled me, but I continued dialing. As the phone rang, I noticed something else that made my blood freeze. Danny was wearing brand new clothes, expensive sneakers that cost more than $300, and a gold watch I'd never seen before. For someone who claimed to be broke, he was certainly living well. Officer Martinez arrived within 12 minutes, his calm professionalism immediately changing the atmosphere in my house. The party guests gathered their children and belongings quickly, muttering complaints about police involvement in a family dispute. Danny's confident demeanor cracked as the officer began taking notes and examining the broken lock on my office door. "Sir, can you explain how you gained entry to this residence?" Officer Martinez directed his question to Danny while photographing the damaged door frame. "It's my brother's house. Family doesn't need permission to visit family." Danny's answer sounded weak, even to his own ears. "Actually, unauthorized entry into someone's home is breaking and entering regardless of family relationships." The officer replied matter-of-factly. "Do you have the homeowner's written permission to be here?" While Danny fumbled for an answer, I showed Officer Martinez my ransacked office and the missing documents. The officer's expression grew more serious as I explained about my accessed computer accounts and the substantial personal information that had been stolen. "Mr. Thompson, I'm going to need you to come down to the station for questioning," Officer Martinez said to Danny. "This appears to be more than a simple trespassing case." "You can't arrest me. I'm just trying to give my daughter a nice birthday party." Danny's voice rose with panic as the reality of his situation began sinking in. Officer Martinez ran Danny's name through the system, and his radio crackled with information that made my brother's face turn ashen gray. "Sir, you have outstanding warrants in Nevada for fraud and identity theft. I'm placing you under arrest." The few remaining party guests gasped and hurried their children toward the exit, clearly wanting no association with criminal activity. Emma began crying, confused by the sudden chaos and her father's distress. Danny's girlfriend Sarah finally arrived, having missed most of the party, and her face went white when she saw the handcuffs. "Sarah, take Emma home. Don't let them question her without a lawyer present," Danny called out as Officer Martinez read him his rights. "I can't believe you actually did it," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You promised me you were just going to ask Frank for help." Her comment revealed more than she probably intended. This wasn't a spontaneous birthday party decision. This had been planned, discussed, and deliberately executed, despite Sarah's apparent objections. Officer Martinez requested backup and a detective to handle the identity theft investigation. Within an hour, my living room had been transformed from a children's party venue into a crime scene processing area. Detective Williams arrived with a laptop computer and began running credit checks that revealed the full scope of Danny's betrayal. "Mr. Patterson, I'm afraid your brother has been very busy with your personal information," Detective Williams said grimly. "We're showing 4 new credit cards opened in your name within the past 6 weeks, plus 2 personal loans totaling $60,000. My legs went weak and I sat heavily in my desk chair. $60,000. How is that even possible? The loan applications all used your social security number, employment information, and bank account details, but with photographs showing your brother's face. He's been systematically impersonating you at different financial institutions across the county. Detective Williams showed me security camera footage from one of the banks where Danny had applied for a $25,000 personal loan. He wore a business suit I'd never seen, carried a briefcase, and confidently answered questions about my job history and income. The performance was disturbingly convincing. We'll need you to file fraud reports with all the affected institutions and provide documentation proving these weren't legitimate transactions, the detective explained. This is going to be a lengthy process to clean up. Sarah sat in my kitchen with Emma, who had stopped crying, but seemed confused and frightened by all the adult drama surrounding her birthday. I felt terrible that an innocent child had become collateral damage in her father's criminal scheme. Mrs. Foster, did you know about Mr. Thompson's plans to steal his brother's identity? Detective Williams questioned Sarah gently. I knew he was desperate about money, but I thought he was just going to ask Frank for a loan, Sarah admitted. Danny said Frank owed him money from when their father left, and that Frank would understand family obligations. Did you assist in planning this party, or gathering information about Mr. Patterson's schedule? Sarah's hesitation spoke volumes before she finally answered. Danny knew Frank always worked late on Fridays. He said it would be the perfect time for a surprise party, because Frank wouldn't be home until after 8 o'clock. The premeditation became clearer with every answer. This wasn't a desperate brother making a poor decision in a moment of crisis. Danny had studied my habits, planned his approach, and used his daughter's birthday as cover for criminal activity. I also need to inform you that we've discovered your brother has been using your medical insurance information, Detective Williams continued. He's received several expensive medical procedures charged to your account. The violations kept multiplying. Danny hadn't just stolen money. He'd invaded every aspect of my identity and financial security. The man I'd grown up with, played catch with, and defended against schoolyard bullies, had methodically dismantled my life while I worked overtime to build a stable future. As the police finished processing the scene, I looked at Emma, sitting quietly with her mother, and felt a complicated mix of anger and sadness. This little girl was innocent, but her father had used her special day as camouflage for devastating betrayal. The birthday party I'd never agreed to had become the worst day of my adult life. Detective Williams returned the next morning with news that transformed my personal family crisis into something far more sinister and complex. He sat across from my kitchen table with a thick folder of documents and a grim expression that made my coffee taste bitter. Frank, we've been analyzing your brother's phone records and financial transactions. This identity theft operation is much bigger than we initially suspected. Detective Williams began spreading photographs and bank statements across my table. The evidence painted a picture I never could have imagined. Danny had been in regular contact with our father Robert, who had abandoned our family 15 years earlier when I was 13, and Danny was 16. Robert had simply vanished one day, leaving behind crushing debt and a mother who worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. Your father has been running a sophisticated identity theft ring across Nevada, Arizona, and California. He recruits family members by exploiting their financial desperation and threatening their children's safety. Detective Williams explained. The phone records showed dozens of calls between Danny and Robert over the past 6 months, starting around the time Danny lost his construction job and fell behind on child support payments. Text messages revealed Robert's manipulation tactics, promising easy money and threatening consequences if Danny refused to participate. According to these communications, your father specifically targeted you because of your clean credit history and stable income as a software developer. Danny was recruited to gather your personal information and execute the identity theft. I stared at Robert's mugshot from a Nevada arrest warrant, barely recognizing the man who used to read bedtime stories before he became a stranger. His face had hardened with age and what looked like years of criminal living. The father who taught me to ride a bicycle had become a predator who harvested his own children's identities. The birthday party wasn't just cover for the break-in, Detective Williams continued. It was specifically timed because your father's organization had researched your work schedule and determined Friday evenings provided the longest window of opportunity. Danny's ex-wife, Jessica, arrived at the police station while Detective Williams was briefing me. She looked exhausted and frightened, clutching a folder of printed text messages and emails that revealed another layer of Robert's manipulation. "Frank, I'm so sorry about what Danny did," Jessica said, her voice shaking. "Robert has been threatening to take Emma away from both of us if Danny didn't cooperate." She showed me screenshots of messages where Robert claimed to have connections with Child Protective Services and family court judges. He'd convinced Danny that refusing to participate would result in Emma being removed from both her parents and placed in foster care. Robert told Danny that you owed the family money because you got all the advantages after he left, Jessica explained. He said you went to college while Danny had to work construction and that you should share your success with family. The psychological manipulation was masterful and devastating. Robert had twisted Danny's genuine financial struggles and resentment into justification for criminal behavior. He'd positioned me as the selfish brother who needed to be taken down, and Danny as the desperate father protecting his daughter. Your father has been collecting personal information on both of you for years through social media monitoring and public record searches, Detective Williams added. He knew about your apartment moves, job changes, and financial situation better than most family members would. The folder contained printouts of my LinkedIn profile, social media posts, and even my college graduation photos that Robert had somehow obtained. He'd been stalking his abandoned sons from a distance, harvesting information for future criminal use. Robert attempted to recruit you directly 2 years ago, but you moved apartments before his associate could make contact, Detective Williams revealed. Danny became the backup plan when Robert's organization needed access to your identity. I remembered getting strange phone calls and suspicious emails around the time I'd moved from my old apartment. Someone had called claiming to be from my bank, asking to verify personal information. Another caller had pretended to be conducting a survey about software developers' income levels. I'd hung up on both, never realizing they were attempts to gather information for identity theft. The fraud ring has stolen over $2 million using family members' identities across 3 states, Detective Williams continued. Robert has been specifically targeting his abandoned children and their relatives because they're unlikely to suspect family connections to the crimes. Jessica provided additional evidence showing how Robert had threatened other family members. Danny's cousin in Nevada had been arrested for similar crimes after Robert convinced him to steal his sister's identity. Another relative in Arizona had committed suicide after being caught in one of Robert's schemes and facing prison time. Robert uses a network of desperate parents, threatening their children's safety to ensure cooperation. The birthday party method has been used multiple times because it provides emotional cover and reduces suspicion, Detective Williams explained. The realization that Emma's innocent celebration had been choreographed by a criminal mastermind made my stomach turn. Robert had turned a child's birthday into a weapon against her own uncle, using family love as camouflage for devastating betrayal. This is now officially a federal case due to the interstate nature of the fraud ring, Detective Williams announced. The FBI will be taking over the investigation, and they'll need your cooperation to catch your father before he disappears again. As I processed the information, one question kept echoing in my mind. How many other families had Robert destroyed with his manipulation? How many brothers, sisters, cousins, and children had been turned into weapons against each other while he profited from their pain? The man who had once been my father had become something monstrous, a predator who fed on family bonds and twisted love into criminal conspiracy. The birthday party that had seemed like simple betrayal was actually the latest move in a complex game where children's safety was used as leverage, and family loyalty became a tool for exploitation. FBI agent Thompson arrived at my house Tuesday morning, carrying a briefcase that contained surveillance photographs I never knew existed. His first words changed everything I thought I understood about the past 6 months of my life. "Mr. Patterson, you've been under federal investigation as a suspected money laundering operative since March," Agent Thompson announced, spreading photos across my dining room table. The images showed me entering and leaving my apartment, walking to my car, and working late at the office. For months, federal agents had been documenting my daily routine, believing I was part of Robert's criminal network, rather than his intended victim. "Your late-night work schedule, unusual banking activity from your software consulting contracts, and connection to your father's operation triggered our monitoring protocols," Agent Thompson explained. "We initially suspected you were laundering stolen funds through legitimate business transactions." My hands trembled as I looked at surveillance photos that captured Danny lurking outside my office building, following me to grocery stores, and sitting in his car across from my house. The FBI had unknowingly documented my brother stalking me while they investigated me as a criminal. "We've been tracking your father's operation for 2 years, trying to identify all network participants," Agent Thompson continued. "Robert Patterson has been using abandoned children's identities, systematically coaching his new stepchildren to target their half-siblings across multiple states. The revelation that Robert had remarried and was training his new family to destroy his biological children felt like a physical blow. He hadn't just abandoned Danny and me. He'd replaced us with new victims who were taught to view us as targets rather than siblings. Your father specifically chose you for this operation because your credit score and income made you ideal for large financial fraud. The software development industry provided perfect cover for complex financial transactions." Agent Thompson showed me a detailed organizational chart of Robert's network. It included photographs of people I'd never seen, all connected by lines indicating family relationships and criminal activities. Robert sat at the center, like a spider, with threads extending to dozens of victims and co-conspirators across the western United States. Danny broke down during interrogation yesterday and revealed that Robert threatened to have Emma kidnapped if he refused to participate. Agent Thompson said grimly, "Your father has connections to people who enforce his threats with violence." The phone rang while Agent Thompson was briefing me, and my mother Janet's voice sounded frantic and breathless. "Frank, sweetheart, I heard about Danny's arrest on the news. I'm coming down there right now to help sort this mess out." "Mom, stay where you are. The FBI is handling everything," I replied, but she'd already hung up. Agent Thompson's expression grew concerned. "Your mother has been in our files as a potential witness. We've been trying to locate her for months to gather information about your father's methods and contacts." Within 2 hours, Janet arrived at my house looking aged beyond her 62 years. She hugged me tightly, crying about Danny's arrest, and expressing disbelief about Robert's criminal activities. Her performance felt genuine, but Agent Thompson watched her carefully with obvious suspicion. "Mrs. Patterson, we need to discuss your knowledge of Robert's whereabouts and activities over the past several years," Agent Thompson said diplomatically. "I haven't spoken to that man since he walked out on us 15 years ago," Janet replied firmly. "He destroyed our family and I never wanted to see him again." But Agent Thompson's next revelation shattered my mother's credibility completely. He produced phone records showing regular communication between Janet and Robert, spanning the entire 2 years of the federal investigation. "Mrs. Patterson, these records show over 200 phone calls between you and Robert Patterson, including conversations that occurred as recently as yesterday," Agent Thompson stated, watching my mother's face crumble. Janet's tears stopped flowing as her expression hardened into something I'd never seen before. The loving, protective mother who had raised Danny and me alone began transforming into someone unrecognizable. "You don't understand how persuasive Robert can be," Janet said quietly. "He convinced me he was trying to make amends, that he wanted to help his sons succeed in life." By stealing Frank's identity and destroying his credit, Agent Thompson pressed. Robert said Frank was being selfish, that families should share wealth instead of hoarding it, while Danny struggled. Janet explained, her voice gaining strength, as she justified her betrayal. He said it was just borrowing, that Frank would never miss the money. The words felt like ice water flooding my veins. My own mother had been Robert's inside source, providing information about my work schedule habits and security measures. She'd helped plan my brother's betrayal while pretending to be the innocent victim of Robert's abandonment. "Mom, you helped him steal from me," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I helped him balance things between my sons." Janet corrected, her maternal warmth replaced by cold calculation. "You had everything handed to you, while Danny struggled to support his daughter. Robert was just evening the scales." Agent Thompson revealed that Janet had provided Robert with detailed information about my daily routine, my apartment security, my work projects, and even my relationship history. She'd been feeding him intelligence for months while cooking me dinner and asking about my love life. "Mrs. Patterson, your cooperation enabled multiple felony crimes against your own son," Agent Thompson said formally. "You're under arrest for accessory to fraud and conspiracy." As handcuffs clicked around my mother's wrists, she looked at me with a mixture of defiance and disappointment. "Robert was right about you, Frank. You care more about money than family. You'd rather see your brother and mother in prison than share what you have." The manipulation continued, even as she was being arrested. Janet had convinced herself that helping Robert steal my identity was an act of maternal love, balancing resources between her children rather than enabling criminal behavior. "Your father is planning to flee the country within 72 hours, Agent Thompson told me after Janet was taken away. "We need your help to catch him before he disappears forever." Standing in my living room where Emma's birthday party had destroyed my life just days earlier, I realized that every family relationship I'd trusted had been a carefully constructed lie. My brother had betrayed me, my mother had enabled it, and my father had orchestrated the entire conspiracy from the shadows. But Agent Thompson's final revelation was the most shocking of all. "Frank, you have a half-sister named Amy, who's been working undercover with our investigation for 18 months. She's Robert's daughter from his second marriage, and she's his primary victim." Agent Thompson introduced me to Amy at the federal building Thursday morning, and the family resemblance was unmistakable despite our different mothers. She had the same dark hair and angular features that Danny and I inherited from Robert, but her eyes held a hardness that spoke of experiences none of us had endured. "Frank, I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances," Amy said, extending her hand with professional formality. "I've been tracking our father's crimes for almost 2 years, ever since he destroyed my life." Amy explained that Robert had used her identity to steal over $400,000 from her college fund when she was 21 years old. The theft had cost her a full scholarship to law school, ended her engagement when her fiancé's family discovered the financial scandal, and forced her to declare bankruptcy before she could legally drink alcohol. Robert taught his new stepchildren to view his biological children as acceptable targets. Amy continued. "He told them we were privileged and selfish, that we owed the family money for abandoning him." The psychological manipulation was even more sophisticated than I'd realized. Robert had created a narrative where his abandoned children were the villains, and his new family were justified in stealing from us. He'd weaponized resentment and twisted it into criminal conspiracy. "Amy has been instrumental in our investigation," Agent Thompson explained. "She's provided intelligence about Robert's methods, his associates, and his planned escape routes. The FBI's plan required me to participate in a sting operation by pretending to reconcile with Robert and convincing him to meet me at a restaurant while wearing recording equipment. The goal was to get him to confess to the identity theft ring on tape, providing evidence that would ensure conviction in federal court. Robert has been trying to contact you through intermediaries for weeks," Agent Thompson revealed. "He wants to gauge whether you're planning to testify against Danny, or if you might be willing to work things out within the family." Amy coached me on Robert's manipulation tactics, warning me about his ability to appear genuinely remorseful while calculating his next criminal move. "He'll probably offer to return the money and claim he was just trying to teach you about family responsibility. she predicted. The key is getting him to admit that he organized the network and recruited family members, Agent Thompson added. We need his confession to protect other potential victims and ensure he can't claim innocence. My mother, Janet, insisted on attending the meeting to provide emotional support, which Agent Thompson initially opposed, but ultimately approved as part of the operation's cover. Janet had been released on bail pending trial, and her presence would make the reconciliation attempt appear more authentic to Robert. The restaurant meeting was scheduled for Friday evening at a family dining establishment that Robert had suggested. The location felt deliberately symbolic, a place where families gathered for celebrations rather than criminal confessions. Agent Thompson equipped me with recording devices hidden in my jacket and briefed me extensively on conversation techniques. Remember, let him do most of the talking, Agent Thompson advised. Ask questions that require him to explain his methods and justify his actions. The more detail he provides, the stronger our case becomes. As I sat across from Robert for the first time in 15 years, I was struck by how ordinary he appeared. The criminal mastermind who had orchestrated complex fraud schemes looked like any middle-aged man enjoying dinner with his family. His smile seemed genuine, his remorse appeared heartfelt, and his explanations sounded reasonable. Frank, I know you must hate me for what happened to your brother. Robert began reaching across the table as if to touch my hand. I never wanted anyone to get hurt, especially not my own sons. Then why did you do it? I asked, following Agent Thompson's coaching to ask open-ended questions. I was desperate to make things right between us. Robert replied, his voice heavy with apparent emotion. I've spent 15 years regretting my decision to leave, and when I heard about Danny's financial problems, I thought I could help both my boys at the same time. The manipulation was masterful. Robert portrayed the identity theft as misguided family assistance rather than criminal exploitation. He claimed to have been motivated by love and regret rather than greed and control. I convinced Danny that you wouldn't mind sharing your success with family, Robert continued. I told him it was just temporary borrowing until he got back on his feet. Janet nodded along with Robert's explanation, occasionally wiping tears from her eyes and expressing agreement with his perspective. Her performance was so convincing that I almost believed her emotional reactions were genuine rather than calculated support for Robert's narrative. Your mother helped me understand your work schedule and habits because we wanted to plan a proper reconciliation, Robert added. The birthday party was supposed to be a surprise that brought the whole family together. But something felt wrong about Janet's behavior. She kept glancing at her phone and making subtle gestures that seemed like signals rather than nervous habits. When she excused herself to use the restroom, she made eye contact with Robert and nodded slightly. During Janet's absence, Robert's demeanor shifted subtly but significantly. His apparent remorse gave way to calculating assessment as he studied my reactions and responses to his explanations. Frank, I need you to understand something important, Robert said quietly. Family loyalty goes both ways. If you testify against Danny and your mother, you'll be destroying what's left of our family permanently. The threat was delivered with gentle words and concerned expressions, but the message was clear. Robert was warning me about consequences for choosing legal justice over family protection. When Janet returned from the restroom, she carried 2 cups of coffee and insisted I drink mine while it was still hot. The gesture seemed motherly and caring, but something about her insistence felt forced and unnatural. I want both my sons to have bright futures. Robert continued, watching me sip the coffee Janet had brought. Maybe we can work together to resolve the situation without involving the courts. The coffee tasted slightly bitter, with an aftertaste that seemed chemical rather than natural. Within minutes, I felt drowsy and disoriented, struggling to focus on Robert's words or maintain coherent thoughts. The medication will help you relax and think clearly about what's best for the family, Janet said softly, her maternal mask slipping to reveal cold calculation underneath. Through my growing confusion, I realized that my own mother had drugged me to make me compliant during Robert's manipulation attempt. The woman who had raised me, protected me, and claimed to love me had become an active participant in my psychological and physical assault. But Agent Thompson and the FBI surveillance team were monitoring the situation carefully. As my vision blurred and my speech became slurred, federal agents moved in to arrest both my parents before they could complete whatever plan they had developed for my incapacitation. The last thing I remembered before losing consciousness was Robert's voice saying, "You always were the stubborn one, Frank, just like your mother before she learned to be reasonable." When I regained consciousness in the hospital 12 hours later, Agent Thompson was sitting beside my bed with updates that completely reframed everything I thought I understood about my family's betrayal. The drug Janet had slipped into my coffee was a powerful sedative that could have caused permanent brain damage if the FBI hadn't intervened quickly. "Frank, there's someone I need you to meet properly," Agent Thompson said, gesturing toward the woman sitting quietly in the corner chair. Amy stepped forward, and I finally understood why her presence felt so familiar, yet unsettling. She wasn't just my half-sister. She was the FBI agent who had been coordinating the entire investigation into Robert's criminal network. "My real name is Amy Patterson Williams," she explained, showing me her federal credentials. "I've been working undercover for the Bureau for 3 years, ever since Robert destroyed my life and drove me to consider suicide." Amy's story was far more devastating than she'd initially revealed. Robert hadn't just stolen her college fund. He'd systematically destroyed every relationship and opportunity in her life as punishment for refusing to recruit her college friends as identity theft victims. Robert used my identity to open credit cards, take out student loans, and even lease apartments that he later abandoned. Amy continued. "When I tried to report him to local police, he convinced them I was an unstable young woman trying to frame my loving father." The manipulation had been so complete that Amy had been arrested twice for fraud crimes that Robert had committed using her information. Her fiancé's family had banned her from their home. Her university had revoked her scholarship due to the financial scandal, and her landlord had evicted her for unpaid rent that Robert had incurred. "I spent 2 years homeless and unemployed before the FBI approached me about helping investigate Robert's network," Amy explained. "Turning him into federal authorities became my only chance for justice and redemption." Agent Thompson revealed that Amy had been instrumental in identifying over 30 victims across 7 states, all of whom were Robert's children, stepchildren, or relatives. The investigation had uncovered a criminal enterprise that had stolen over $5 million using family manipulation and identity theft. "Your father has 7 children from 4 different relationships," Agent Thompson continued. "He systematically targeted each one for financial exploitation, usually recruiting their siblings or step-siblings to execute the crimes." Amy showed me photographs of Robert's other victims, including a half-brother in California, who had committed suicide after being arrested for crimes Robert had orchestrated. Another sister in Texas had lost custody of her children when Robert's schemes resulted in her imprisonment for identity theft. "Robert's method is always the same," Amy explained. "He disappears from his children's lives, then returns years later, claiming to want reconciliation. He identifies the most financially successful child and uses family guilt to recruit other relatives to steal from them." The birthday party scheme had been used multiple times across different states. Robert had coached various parents to use their children's celebrations as cover for breaking into relatives' homes and stealing personal information. "Danny was never supposed to survive this operation," Agent Thompson revealed grimly. Robert planned to eliminate him once the identity theft was complete, making it appear like a suicide driven by guilt over betraying his brother. The evidence included recorded conversations where Robert discussed cleaning up loose ends and ensuring that Danny takes full responsibility for the family business. "My brother had been recruited as a disposable tool rather than a criminal partner. Your mother, Janet, has been Robert's primary accomplice for over 5 years. Agent Thompson continued. She's helped him track down and exploit multiple children from his various relationships. Janet's maternal concern and protective behavior toward Danny and me had been an elaborate performance, designed to gather intelligence for Robert's criminal operations. Every family dinner, every concerned phone call, and every piece of advice had been calculated to provide Robert with information he could use against us. During the federal trial that followed, I learned the full scope of Robert's psychological manipulation. Expert witnesses testified about his systematic methods for destroying family bonds and turning relatives into weapons against each other. Danny testified as a cooperating witness, revealing how Robert had convinced him that stealing from me was an act of family justice rather than criminal betrayal. The jury heard recordings of Robert threatening Emma's safety and promising violence against anyone who refused to participate in his schemes. Robert told me that Frank had gotten everything easy, while I struggled with real problems. Danny testified, tears streaming down his face. He made me believe that taking Frank's money was just balancing things out between brothers. The psychological manipulation had been so complete that Danny genuinely believed he was helping his daughter by destroying his brother's financial security. Robert had twisted paternal love into criminal motivation with masterful precision. Jessica also testified about Robert's threats against Emma, revealing that he had detailed knowledge about the child's school schedule, daily activities, and security vulnerabilities. The threats weren't empty intimidation. Robert had conducted surveillance and developed actual kidnapping plans. Janet received 10 years in federal prison for her role as accomplice and intelligence coordinator. Her sentence was enhanced due to the psychological abuse of her own children and the systematic betrayal of maternal trust. Danny received a reduced sentence of 18 months in exchange for his cooperation and genuine remorse about his actions. The judge acknowledged that he had been manipulated and threatened, but emphasized that he could have sought help instead of choosing criminal behavior. Robert received 25 years in federal prison for organizing a criminal enterprise, multiple counts of identity theft conspiracy, and making terroristic threats against children. The judge described his crimes as a systematic exploitation of family bonds that strikes at the foundation of human trust. Amy and I worked together to establish a victim assistance fund that helped Robert's other children rebuild their lives and repair the financial damage he had caused. The nonprofit organization provided legal assistance, credit repair services, and counseling for family fraud victims. Helping other families heal from similar betrayals became my way of finding purpose in the pain. Amy explained during one of our planning meetings. Robert took away my original life plans, but he inadvertently gave me a mission that feels more meaningful than anything I'd planned before. The most satisfying aspect of the legal resolution was watching Emma grow and heal under Jessica's loving care. The little girl, who had been used as an unknowing weapon against her uncle, gradually learned to understand that her father's crimes weren't her fault, and that family love should protect rather than exploit. 2 years after Emma's birthday party destroyed my sense of family security, I stand in my completely renovated home office, surrounded by advanced security systems and framed photographs of people who have earned my trust through consistent actions rather than claimed blood relations. The birthday decorations are long gone, replaced by pictures of my chosen family and certificates recognizing my work helping other identity theft victims. The transformation of my relationship with Danny has been the most surprising aspect of my healing journey. During his 18 months in federal prison, he completed educational programs in financial counseling and victim advocacy, emerging with a genuine understanding of how his actions had devastated not just my financial security, but my ability to trust family relationships. Frank, I know saying sorry will never undo what I did to you, Danny told me during our first supervised visit after his release. But I want you to know that I understand now how Robert manipulated my love for Emma into a weapon against my own brother. Danny now works as a certified financial counselor, specializing in identity theft recovery, helping other families navigate the complex process of rebuilding credit and financial security after fraud crimes. His personal experience with both perpetrating and suffering from family financial abuse gives him unique insights that help clients heal. Every person I help feels like a small step toward making amends for what I did to you, Danny explained during one of our monthly coffee meetings. I can't give you back the security and trust I destroyed, but I can use my experience to protect other families from similar betrayal. Our relationship has slowly rebuilt through family therapy sessions that focus on establishing healthy boundaries rather than resuming previous patterns of interaction. We've learned to appreciate each other as adults with separate lives, rather than assuming that shared childhood experiences create automatic trust and loyalty. Emma, now 8 years old, visits my home regularly for supervised activities that both Danny and Jessica support. She's grown into a thoughtful child who understands that her father made serious mistakes, but has worked hard to become a better person. Uncle Frank Daddy told me he hurt your feelings really badly when I was little, Emma said during a recent visit while we worked on a puzzle together. He said saying sorry isn't enough, so he has to keep showing you he's changed by helping other people. Her innocent wisdom often provides perspective that adult conversations miss. Emma has learned to value honesty and consistency in relationships, understanding that real love involves protecting rather than exploiting the people we care about. My professional life has evolved significantly since the identity theft crisis. I transitioned from general software development to cybersecurity specialization, focusing specifically on helping families and small businesses protect themselves from identity theft and financial fraud. Your personal experience with family financial abuse gives you insights that can't be learned from textbooks. My business partner Sarah Chen told me during a recent client presentation, families trust you because they know you understand how devastating these crimes can be. The cybersecurity consulting firm I co-founded has helped over 200 families recover from identity theft, with special expertise in cases involving family member perpetrators. We've developed educational programs that teach people to recognize manipulation tactics and protect personal information even from trusted relatives. My relationship with Amy has become one of the most valuable connections in my life. Our shared experience of parental betrayal created a foundation for mutual understanding and support that has grown into genuine siblinghood based on choice rather than genetic accident. Working together on the Victim Assistance nonprofit has helped me process my own trauma while creating something positive from Robert's destruction. Amy reflects during our weekly planning meetings. Turning our pain into protection for other families feels like the best possible revenge against his manipulation. Together, we've helped establish support groups for adult children who've experienced financial abuse from parents or siblings. The groups provide safe spaces for people to process complex emotions about family betrayal without judgment or pressure to forgive before they're ready. The nonprofit organization has also lobbied for legislative changes that make family financial abuse easier to prosecute and provide better protection for victims who report crimes committed by relatives. Amy's legal background and my technology expertise have created an effective partnership for systemic change. Perhaps the most profound lesson I've learned is understanding the difference between being alone and being independent. For years after Robert's abandonment, I had isolated myself emotionally to avoid potential hurt, mistaking loneliness for safety and independence for strength. Real independence means having the confidence to form healthy relationships while maintaining appropriate boundaries. My therapist, Dr. Rodriguez, explained during one of our sessions, "You're not protecting yourself by avoiding all emotional connections. You're limiting your capacity for joy and growth." The crisis forced me to examine my patterns of emotional withdrawal and learn to distinguish between reasonable caution and self-defeating isolation. I've discovered that genuine security comes from developing good judgment about people's character, rather than avoiding all potential vulnerability. My home feels safe again, not because of the security systems I've installed, but because I've learned to trust my instincts about people's intentions and behaviors. The violation I felt after the break-in has been replaced by confidence in my ability to recognize and respond to threats appropriately. The dating relationship I've developed with Maria Santos, a fellow identity theft survivor I met through support group activities, has taught me that shared trauma can create deep understanding without defining the entire relationship. We've learned to support each other's healing while building something new and positive together. You and I both know what it feels like to have trust destroyed by people who claim to love us, Maria told me during a recent dinner conversation. But we also know how much stronger and wiser that experience has made us in choosing who deserves our trust now. Emma's regular visits have become some of my favorite times, watching her develop into a confident child who values honesty and kindness in her relationships. She calls me her honest uncle because I always tell her age-appropriate truth rather than comfortable lies. Uncle Frank, some of my friends' families keep secrets and tell lies to protect feelings, Emma observed recently. But I like that you always help me understand what's really happening, even when it's sad. Her comment reminded me that children benefit from honest communication, adapted to their developmental level, rather than protective deception that ultimately undermines their ability to understand and navigate relationships. The most unexpected aspect of my recovery has been discovering how much I enjoy helping other families navigate similar crises. Speaking at workshops about family financial abuse, consulting with law enforcement agencies about identity theft investigations, and mentoring other survivors has given my experience meaning beyond personal healing. Every family we help avoid financial abuse feels like a victory against the manipulation tactics that nearly destroyed our lives. I told Amy during a recent conference where we presented our research findings. The work has also helped me process residual anger and resentment by channeling those emotions into constructive action that prevents other families from experiencing similar trauma. Looking back on Emma's 6th birthday party that changed everything, I realized that Robert's criminal scheme inadvertently led to discoveries and growth that I might never have achieved otherwise. His attempt to destroy my security ultimately strengthened my ability to build genuine safety based on wisdom rather than isolation. The man who tried to teach his children that family bonds justify criminal behavior instead demonstrated the importance of choosing relationships based on mutual respect and consistent character rather than genetic connection or claimed obligation. My greatest victory isn't the legal justice we achieved against Robert Janet and their criminal network, though that satisfaction remains important. The real triumph is discovering my capacity to build a fulfilling life based on authentic relationships, meaningful work, and personal integrity. Standing in my secure home office, surrounded by evidence of genuine accomplishment and healthy relationships, I understand that surviving betrayal doesn't make someone a victim forever. It can create wisdom, compassion, and strength that helps others navigate similar challenges while building something better from the wreckage of broken trust. The birthday party that was supposed to be my destruction became the beginning of my real education about family security and the difference between love and manipulation. Emma's innocent celebration taught me that genuine family protects and supports rather than exploits and destroys. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? And how did you rebuild your ability to form healthy relationships afterward? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might help other viewers who are struggling with similar trust issues after family betrayal. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking this video to help others find these important discussions about family financial abuse and identity theft protection. Subscribing to the channel ensures you'll see future stories about overcoming betrayal and building stronger, healthier relationships. Sharing this video with friends or family members who might benefit from understanding the warning signs of family financial manipulation could help protect someone you care about from similar exploitation. Thank you for listening to my story and supporting content that addresses real family challenges with honesty and hope. I wish you all the wisdom to recognize genuine love and the courage to protect yourselves from those who would exploit family bonds for personal gain. Remember that real family builds you up rather than tearing you down, and that you deserve relationships based on respect, honesty, and mutual support rather than manipulation, threats, and exploitation.